Okay, so I'm Brian Kephart, and this is my submission for Case 1 for Supply Chain Management 455. The first case that I wanted to talk about was this Senko Electronics Company, which was a US-based manufacturer of computers, and they currently serve a US market, and they primarily produce uh, in the US market here. And the first question that we were tasked to answer had to do with transportation cost in the ocean versus air case. And how I answered the question, I would advise Jim to examine the transportation cost a lot closer. We can see from like the data that they provided here that the total transportation cost for ocean was $150,000 versus air was $290,000. Um, and although the ocean transportation seems much more cost effective, when you add up to the total costs, we're looking at about $823,000 in total cost for ocean transportation versus air transportation being in at 800,000. And the main difference that accounts for that, which we talked about in the case here, was we had lower carrying cost in like the air transportation because we're not storing the product quite as long. So I would advise this Jim here that we should ship via air transportation to save cost. Um, let's see here. The other case that I wanted to briefly talk about was the alligator case here, and we were tasked to answer two questions. The first one was talking about the effects of supply and demand here. What are some of the impacts of a less than perfect demand forecast of alligator? And I said that if the demand forecast is not accurate, then there will be difference. The differences will affect the supply chain. The inaccurate demand forecasts are critical to the supply chain. So without accurate data and forecasting, we will not be able to. We may not be able to fill the customer's order. There may be gaps in the supply chain, and in order to mitigate the issue, the customer and supplier need to maintain proper communication so that the accuracy of the demand forecast can help fill the gaps in the supply chain. The second question that we were tasked to answer was what elements of strategic sourcing process do you feel are the top candidates to improve at Alligator? And what I come to the realization was that Alligator must reanalyze their supply market because one of the problems they were having was a quality difference in where the products were made. The one shoes, I think they were made in Brazil, didn't have quite the quality that they had whenever they were manufactured in Spain. And although the cost differentiation, the Alligator must reanalyze their supply market and possibly come up with better solutions for procurement and strategic sourcing through their suppliers. And this would allow for more cost effective and reliable products to be available in the market. And it would allow them to minimize their risks in the marketplace. And finally, they must track their progress in the market and continue to monitor cost to be effective at selling their shoes in the market. That's going to do it for case 1.